Good evening, everyone. Let me know if you can hear me. Rumpelstiltskin is here. He's in Japan, so he's gotten up early. We've got Juan Crespo. We've got Neil Hahn, Pablo Pina. Shane Sturgis is here. Good evening, he says. I hope all is well from East Sussex. Yeah, everything's great. My wife and I went to a friend's birthday party for lunch. Billy stayed home, but he behaved well. Marek Kalenda, Kazakhstan, people's standard of living is higher than Russian people's standard of living. All right. Echo Echo says, good evening, Mario. Loud and clear, says Alan Zibelman. Ukbe Guyen, hello. Mastermind, Belly Dance Rabia. Yeah, I'm using a normal work shirt or a long sleeve shirt, not my usual golf shirt. So yeah, as usual, I'm a little early than the scheduled time. The title of the live stream is "There is no free market and general prosperity without the rule of law." Yeah, and by that I also mean that the rule of law, the law has to be the same for everyone. There's no preferential treatment, but we'll go into that when we get everyone on board at 9 o'clock London time. Richard Spiller says, hope you're good. Yeah, no, I'm doing well. I'm doing well. The weather here has been quite nice, like not raining, but it's been pretty cold. I played golf not on the weekend this week. I played a couple of times during the week, and yeah. Cheshire Yeoman, hi Cheshire Yeoman. Bifford, nice to see you here as well. Biff. Lord Humongous, hi Lord Humongous, nice to see you here again as usual. Bonjour de Montréal, Alain Roy. Bonjour Alain, ça va? Bit of speak a little, get my French out a bit. It's probably a bit rusty. Dominic Torres, we are approaching stage 5, phase 5, established chaos and martial law. Yeah, most people think we're going back to normal. Yeah, I'm going to reference this book. Campbell's note says, sounds like a good topic. The Law by Frederic Bastiat. A lot of you know this book already, but there's some interesting passages in here we'll go through. MW says, smash the like button. Yeah. And also, if you haven't subscribed yet, make sure you subscribe and hit the notification bell. Lord Humongous' birthday today. Happy birthday, Lord Humongous. Our friend, she turned 60. I think her birthday is tomorrow, but she did it today. So she's a little older than you. Carthago Delanta Est from the Netherlands. Good evening. Bill Courtney from Vancouver Island. Pat is here. Hi, Pat. Grow Mechanic. Hi, Grow Mechanic. He's always one of the first to comment on all my videos. He's, yeah, I think almost every time, if not the second. Helen of Troy, thank you. Happy Sunday to you as well. Helen of Troy, ounce. Who is breaking the law? Well, we're going to talk about that. I would say the general idea is that the people who are supposed to administer the rule of law, they're abusing the law. They're using it to what Bastiat calls to plunder. uh, individuals. They're supposed to protect us, to protect the individual, our property, and our bodies. And they do the opposite. They use that law to plunder from us our property. They do it through inflation, through taxation. And government has gotten too big, of course. Cozy Fantuti, good evening. Djokovic was deported. I saw that. Well, that's a case of the rule of law not really working. It was a political decision by the federal government of Australia. And I would say in a free country, people should be free to decide what they want injected into their body, and that they shouldn't be coerced into doing it. Some people say, oh, he just needed to have 2 medical procedures and then he could have played the Australian Open. But yeah, that seems really easy, but it's the principle of it, and it's totally wrong. But it's not only in Australia they're doing that. In Europe, they're doing that. Here in the UK, we're still not there, but I don't think we are out of the woods yet. Andrew Watson says, hi, Mario, Bitcoin Billy. Yeah, Billy's more into silver and bullion, Billy Bullion, but he will take any Bitcoin you throw at him. Hi, Lily Robin, nice to see you. Neil Hahn. Jeff Logue is here. Nacho Fool. Teddy Roosevelt. Hi, Teddy. You carrying a big stick? Time to make more Sage Darby while listening to the show. Contaminated tennis balls. Pat, I tried to post a reminder of the secret society of the 9 unknown men last week's video, but I was blocked. All right. Someone told me about that. I need to look into that. Kalbir Singh works in central London. Business has collapsed. So yeah, I mean, the last time I go into the city of London once in a while, and I used to work there for over 20 years. And when you go there now during the week, it feels like during the bank holidays, because working in the city, some people used to go in the bank during the bank holiday. We could drive in because most of the office was out, but we always needed someone at the desk. And going out during the week, during a normal day, feels like it during the bank holidays. It's totally deserted, the city of London. So I can imagine how a lot of small ancillary businesses like restaurants and shops, they're going out of business because people are not going into the office. Larry Farris from Dallas. Hi, Larry. Gianfranco Bergagna, natural gas rode to 850. 419 BTZ. No, it's not a new shirt. It's just that I went out to a birthday party today, and I wore this shirt and a blazer, a jacket. But yeah, it's not my usual golf shirt. It's a long sleeve one. And the Fed, Jen, the Liberty Lion. I agree. I've got my End the Fed mug here. It's an old one. It's worn out. Robbing Americans since 1913. not joking. How's velocity of money in UK at the moment? I haven't really looked at money velocity. It's something I don't really think matters. Many of the deflationists were saying or even a year ago that we wouldn't see high prices because money velocity was way low, and they've been proven completely wrong. Okay, we've got a couple of minutes to the official start. Over here, do you think the newer silver stackers are stacking silver because it has always been monetary metal, or considering the industrial demand for silver in the green energy future? Actually, I think a lot of them, from what I've seen over almost a year now of the silver stack movement, a lot of them are young, and a lot of them look at silver more as money. They're finding out, they're buying their silver coins or bars, and they're realizing that here we have this metal, which is really nice and is worth something. But yeah, in the back of their mind, they also know about the industrial use. I think that probably is in their minds. But I guess it's a bit of everything. But I would say it's different than in a lot of the crypto sphere. I remember I started looking at Bitcoin in 2012 more as an alternative to the banking system, but now it's become something very speculative, very, very greed orientated. I think the silver stack movement is not like that right now. It doesn't mean it can't get greed like when the price of silver starts going up. So there you go. So, okay. We've got quite a few people on now. So yeah, there's no free market and general prosperity without the rule of law. And a lot of people think that we have free markets. A lot of people mix free market with capitalism. I think any word with ism is it's like always bad. I think the best thing really is to say that in a free market, under the rule of law, there's a level playing field. Government is minimal. A government is there to administer the rule of law, and then the rest is left to the free market, because free market is just individuals voluntarily dealing with each other. And some people say, oh, if you leave the market free, if you don't regulate it, people are going to rip consumers off. But I think that there's a solution to that. If businesses or particular businesses rip consumers off, consumers, and they're going to stop dealing with that company, and other business people are going to see, well, there's a how can I say, a space there for us. We're not going to rip people off. We're going to provide people with a good product with at a good, fair price where we can keep running and we can make a profit. And that's how it works. Yes, we are always told that the government has to protect consumers, but that also gives consumers, that makes consumers not sharp enough, because they always think, oh, there's a regulator behind this, and this company is regulated by such and such bureaucracy, and they think, oh, they don't need to do their homework, and they deal with that company. So I will start with that introduction. And the other thing I would say, yes, capital is only savings, really. So in a free market, if you're and hopefully in a sound money system, because in a free market, really, when the government is not involved in the money, like they are now with legal tender laws and fiat currency, the market and people, they decide what to use as money. And usually it's the most marketable commodity, something that has intrinsic value, that holds its value over time, and it's stable. And it's been found to be gold and silver over the last few thousand years. And yes, so in a free market where businesses, workers, consumers deal in sound money, eventually, some people, if they work hard and they have initiative and discipline, they're able to save some of what they earn, and that becomes savings, and that becomes capital. But is it capitalism? You could call it that, but as I said, using isms is always, it's like it creates division, because then you got socialism and capitalism. I think that trying to be a good individual, be it a business person or an employee or a consumer, I know that not everyone is going to be, there's always bad characters out there, but I think that if we allow people to really decide for themselves, is a lot better. So I said in the live stream, because I come on a few minutes before, we're going to look at The Law by Frederic Bastiat. And a lot of you, of course, have heard about this book, and but some of you haven't. And I'm going to go here to page 2, and Frederic Bastiat talks about what is law. And I think we've gone so far away from the law right now, and it seems very utopia-like to talk about this, but I think it's important we talk about this, because we need to try to have, as it says here, the classic blueprint for a just society. Yes, it's not going to be perfect. So let's go through this. It's not long. It says, what then is law? It is the collective organization of the individual rights to lawful defense. So yes, it's collective, but it's to help individuals. Oji, thank you for your super chat. Says forecast 2022 gold, silver, Bitcoin, stocks down, dollar up, definition of deflation. Okay. All right. Each of us has a natural right from God to defend his person, his liberty, and his property. So that's the right to self-defense, right? These are the 3 basic requirements of life. So to defend your person, your freedom or liberty, and your property. And the preservation of any of them is completely dependent upon the preservation of the other 2. For what are our faculties but the extension of our individuality? And what is property but an extension of our faculties? So basically he's saying you have your faculties, your, what you're good at, your skills, whatever, and that helps you create property. How do you do that? Well, through creating value, through dealing with other people, and through saving property, because that's what when you earn in a free market, if you're able to save, that's property, right? If every person has the right to defend, even by force, his person, his liberty, and his property, then it follows that a group of men have the right to organize and support a common force to protect these rights constantly. So that's what government should be, according to Frederic Bastiat. It's just a collective chosen by men who are free, and women, of course, to protect those rights. Thus, since an individual cannot lawfully use force against the person, liberty, or property of another individual, then the common force So that's the common force would be government here. For the same reason, it cannot lawfully be used to destroy the person. So that's what he's saying here. So if we uh, uh, if we are not as individuals or a person able, if we shouldn't attack people with force, if we create a collective common government to defend persons, individuals, that government shouldn't be able to do the same thing, right? Either. Such a perversion of force would be in both cases contrary to our premise. Force has been given to us to defend our own individual rights. Who will dare to say that force has been given to us to destroy the equal rights of our brothers? Since no individual acting separately can lawfully use force to destroy the rights of others, does it not logically follow that the same principle also applies to the common force that is nothing more than the organized combination of the individual forces? So yeah, it makes a lot of sense. But unfortunately, our governments have gone too far into plundering a group of people, be whatever group it is, and then helping another group. And we'll come to that in a minute. If this is true, then nothing can be more evident than this. The law is the organization of the natural right of lawful defense. It is the substitution of a common force for individual force. And this common force is to do only what the individual forces have a natural and lawful right to do, to protect persons, liberties, and properties, to maintain the right of each, and to cause justice to reign over us all. So I'm going to stop here. So this book makes a lot of sense, and you think, why don't they teach this? Why don't they make every child read this in school? Well, it's because Frederic Bastiat is fighting for individual freedom, and statists and socialists, and be they conservative or Democrat, be they left or right, they always want big government. They're always trying to push this for the common good, right? For society. But the thing is, what Bastiat is saying, if you defend every individual and that you don't let government do what you wouldn't let an individual do to another person, then you've protected society. So that's the whole point of the law, I would say. But we've gone too far away from that. Poseidon De Soto, thank you for your super chat. Says hi from Washington State. Otis Woodley is Monaco 64 in support of the jab. Well, again, it's up to the individual to decide. I'm not. No, I'm not, because from what I've heard about it, from the statistics, there's very little chance that I will die from this disease. And there hasn't been enough testing as well of these procedures, not long enough. And but as I said, it's up to the individual to decide whether they want it or not. But government shouldn't be, and private businesses shouldn't be coercing people into taking this procedure. That's how I see it. And the other thing that I would say, if you look at the poorer countries around the world, if you want to call them third world countries or emerging markets, usually they have a lot of inflation like we're getting now. And inflation is basically the rule of law being twisted. It's basically legal plunder. That's what Bastiat calls it. because the government and the people in power use the law to plunder one group of people, like they did in 2008 and 9. They plundered all taxpayers to bail out Wall Street, and they're still doing the same thing. The Federal Reserve, all the other central banks, governments are, yes, they are doing fiscal spending, but that helps the bankers. So that's what's going on. And in third world countries, that's been a lot more common. And now in the West, it's becoming just like a third world country. And that's why, unfortunately, yeah, we have to be on the lookout for that. We can't think that it's going to be normal anymore. We're going to see continued inflation. Yes, there's a lot of talk that they're going to raise rates a lot of times. They're going to reverse everything, but they can't afford to do that. And even if they do that, everything will implode, will collapse. And a lot of businesses and even governments will fail. And that's why you still need to have your stack outside the system. Oh, John Bethia says it's your right, no explanation needed. That's right. That's the other important thing about the rule of law and common law. I mean, England, I would say, is the home of common law. In the US as well, you got the same system, a lot of countries. And one of the most important laws or aspects of common law that is that you have the right to remain silent. So if someone, some official or police asks you a question, unless they suspect you of a crime, you don't have to say anything. And you know, that's the most important thing. Just be quiet and say nothing. And do, as long as you do things that don't hurt anyone else, you should be okay. Greg Austin, cheers, but ID is a crucial component of honesty. I'm not sure what you mean by that, Greg Austin. ID. That doesn't make sense. That's contradictory because you only need ID if you're if you're dishonest. If someone asks you your name and you lie about it, that's why you need an ID. That's the other reason. One of the reasons when I decided to come work in London, come to live in England in 92, I was working and living in Switzerland. I was offered a good job to come work in the city, but I also thought I like England because it's like the States, because I went to university in the States in the early 80s, and there's no ID card in the States back then. The only kind of ID that you had to maybe prove how old you were was your driving license or driver's license. But you go to European countries or Brazil and like other countries, they actually have an ID card. And I think that's wrong. Why should I have an ID card? I don't get it. But unfortunately, that's changing here as well. Fontana Ranja, what do you think of Rolex as a tangible store of value? If you look at the charts, they have done very well over the past few years. The brand has intangible value, but also contain precious metals. Yeah, not all Rolexes contain precious metals. And yeah, I've got a Explorer 2. I bought it in 2003. And the price has gone up, but it's really the money that has gone down in value. I think fine watches are always going to be valuable. Of course, they're, when things right now, they're quite liquid. That means you can buy and sell it very easily because there's still a lot of credit around. But the only problem with watches and jewelry or diamonds is when you have a depression and there's no liquidity, it's hard to turn it into cash. But over time, yeah, they are very good stores of value, watches, and they're also easier to pass it on without anyone knowing it to give it to a family member. But yeah, some Rolexes have gold as well, 18 karat gold. Thomas, thank you. Excuse me. Thank you. Thank you for your super chat. Is there no bigger health crisis than the impact? There is no bigger health crisis than the impact of censorship. Yeah, I agree. I won't say the word there, but people can see what you're talking about. Totally agree. I have a feeling that, and I'm not really putting too much hope on it, but it looks like things are turning around. We're seeing people in the mainstream media, politicians here in the UK and elsewhere. I saw in Denmark, a newspaper was apologizing that they're scaremongering, but a lot of the newspapers, they've been paid by governments to advertise the propaganda and the scare tactics. So maybe things are, some people call it the Great Awakening. Who knows? Maybe people are starting to wake up. I mean, I've been pretty much awake to what's going on in terms of this disease since the beginning. George Gammon, Neil McCoy Ward talk about nice watches as another way to store wealth. Yeah, I've spoken about it as well a few years ago. Yeah, you can't go wrong with. I think the top ones are Rolex and Patek Philippe. Patek Philippe has become a lot more unaffordable. Rolex is quickly going, through the roof. I saw as well that wealthy Chinese are starting to buy watches like Rolex and Patek Philippe. And why is that? Well, because they've been putting a lot of their money into real estate, and we know what's happened to real estate in China of late. So I think the Chinese are going to drive watch prices as well. So yeah, the other thing that I think will do well is fine wine, the kind of wine that you buy and put away. Yeah, anything that's good value, that's not made in China. Yeah, Audemar's Piguet, that's another good watch. Piaget as well. Yeah, there's quite a few good, Swiss watches. Tudor is another interesting one. They used to be owned by Rolex, and they look like Rolexes. They're a bit cheaper. Tudor. Benoit Guillou thinks that they use artificial scarcity methods. Um, Maybe they do, but I would say Rolex. I bought this for £2,000 in 2003, and I think now they're like 8 or 9,000 to buy, maybe even more new. So, yeah, I don't think you can go wrong, especially with what's going on in the monetary world with hyperinflation. I'd rather buy another one of these than buy Dogecoin or something like that. HZJ79, thank you for your super chat. Nazdrovi. Does that mean cheers, right? Polish Nazdrovi. I think so. Whiskey, I think one of the viewers here said that they're starting to buy whiskey as well. It's interesting. I was watching a video the other day about what the wealthy Romans used to, what they had their wealth in, and a lot of it was in real estate. A lot of it was they left it in coins, and a lot of their wealth was also in slaves, which of course we don't have anymore. But yeah, very tangible things, so to speak. Graham Hobbs, he's a Doge holder. Okay. I saw it's been doing quite well lately, Doge. Um, oh, I've got a few things I wanted to share with you because we're hearing here in the UK as well now a lot of they're talking about this Chinese spy who has infiltrated Parliament. Okay, and yeah, what I want to try to say is that the Chinese and the establishment in this country and in the USA, they're all working together. And I think in the latest Mike and Mario show, there's an article that we showed that Xi Jinping is going to meet Klaus Schwab, and he's going to be at the next World Economic Forum conference or something. So they're all in this together. And this is a guy that people need to look into. You see, Stephen Schwarzman. He's the CEO of the Blackstone Group. They manage about $700 billion. Their private equity. You see, he goes to the World Economic Forum. He even worked for President Trump for about 8 months. I don't know why he left. But if you scroll down here on his Wikipedia and you look at the philanthropy part of Mr. Schwarzman, says here, on April 21st, 2013, Schwarzman announced a 100 million personal gift to establish and endow a scholarship program in China. Schwarzman Scholars, modeled after Rhodes Scholarship Program. Schwarzman simultaneously announced a fundraising campaign with a goal of $200 million. The Schwarzman Scholars Program is housed at Tsinghua University. I hope I pronounced that right. Since its inception, the program has maintained ties to the United Front Work Department, as well as other organizations and personnel affiliated with the Chinese Communist Party. And then the other interesting thing, and I'm going to highlight it here, and this is to do with the UK. It says in June 2019, the University of Oxford announced that Schwarzman had donated 150 million pounds to establish Schwarzman Center for Humanities, due to be completed for the university in 2024-25 academic year. And the other thing he's doing, Schwarzman and Oxford University, because that's where the Rhodes Trust operates. Bill Clinton was a Rhodes Scholar, and this trust was created by Cecil Rhodes, who wanted like an Anglo-American empire, right? Cecil Rhodes. He died, didn't have any heirs. He left this huge trust, and a lot of people who have become very important in US politics and business, they went to Oxford University. But since 2015, the Rhodes Trust is also financing scholarships for Chinese students, because the original Rhodes Scholarship or Trust was for American students. And now Stephen Schwarzman is joining together with Oxford to fund this Rhodes Scholarship for Chinese students. So yes, it's all part of this globalist thing. So what I'm trying to say here is that when the mainstream media and when they keep going on about the fact that the Chinese are bad and this, and I'm not saying the Chinese are good, but that they're saying, oh, we're going to go to war because of Taiwan. I think this is just creating distractions for us to think that, yeah, the Chinese are bad. But in the background, if you look at people like Schwarzman and others, they're heavily involved with the communist Chinese, and they're doing a lot of exchange. This country here, they're funding for Chinese students, communist Chinese students, to come here to go to Oxford, to the major elite universities. And so it's not just Chinese companies that are like maybe funding MPs here. This is just a distraction. We have to look at the bigger picture. So that's what I wanted to tell you guys about. Steve Ross Holmes, thank you for your super chat. Most of us are expecting a commodity super cycle. This might lead to wage and price controls, which would eventually create shortages. Yeah, initially though, how will control affect commodity prices? Well, I think they'll pretty much very quickly create shortages. It might not happen overnight, but you can bet that it will create even more shortages. I mean, they've done it here in the UK. They've put price cap on energy suppliers, and that's created shortages here, and that's also led to energy suppliers. I think about 27 of them have gone bust in the last 12 months here in the UK. So it's not just the commodity that's in short supply or the energy, also the companies that provide it. And the less companies there are, the less competition and the less opportunity for prices to go down. Yeah, you see the politicians and statists, they never want to come out and admit that they are to blame for inflation along with the central bankers. So they'll blame businesses. I think I saw Elizabeth Warren was blaming supermarket chains for higher food prices. I mean, that's so stupid. Uh, she's not blaming Congress for all the fiscal stimulus they created or the Fed for printing trillions. So that's what they do. And the other thing about price controls, it's actually a legal plunder. You're actually attacking someone's property there, because you're saying to a producer or someone who manufactures something that they can't charge more than a certain amount. And what it does, of course, most of us know, is that they will cap the price, and then it's not worth producing to sell at that price, so it will create shortages. But that's also legal plunder, because you're attacking property there by telling the owner at what price they can sell it at. There's no free market there, and it will actually make it even worse for consumers. So we've got still 30 minutes. Oh, I guess most of you guys have heard about this volcano erupting in Tonga in the South Pacific. And the reason I want to talk about it is that there's an article here from, let's see, 2015. It says, and I'm not saying this volcano that erupted in Tonga is going to do this, but just to show you how it can be important, it says this 1783 volcanic eruption changed the course of history. So this was in Iceland in 1783. It says and it says here, during the next 8 months, an estimated 14 cubic kilometers of lava poured from 135 fissures and volcanic craters near the town of Claustor. The lava from the fissures ended up covering an estimated 2,500 square kilometers of land, which threatened to overrun not only many farms, also entire towns. The newly formed chain of volcanoes was named later Laki. But the interesting thing that they talk about here is this. In the resulting plague and famine from 1783 to 1784, an estimated 9,000 people, 1/5 of the population of Iceland, died. And it says, but the Laki eruption has possibly even more widespread effects, even if at the time there were no airlines. In the months after the eruption, a strange haze covered the sky above Europe, making breathing difficult as the ash and gases from the eruption entered the high layers of the atmosphere. They absorbed moisture, sunlight, changing the climate for years to come. From 1783 to 1785, accounts from both Japan and America described terrible droughts, exceptional cold winters, and disastrous floods. In Europe, the exceptionally hot summer of 83 was followed by long and harsh winters. The resulting crop failures may have triggered one of the most famous insurrections of starving people in history, the French Revolution of 1789 to 1799. It says it's a sobering reminder that destructive changes to the environment can have a long-lasting and far-reaching impacts, even from hundreds of miles away. So I haven't really looked too much into this current volcano that erupted in the middle of the Pacific, but I see that it's affecting places like California and South America and even Japan. So that's an interesting thing to keep in mind, I would say. Yeah, GMC says large volcanoes going off equals more global cooling. That's right. Yeah, I know, Artful One. I saw some articles talking about tsunami warnings, and it just looked like really good waves to surf. So there's a lot of people surfing. I think they're trying to exaggerate it. I agree with you. Joker Alpha, Mary, a lot of interest rate talk in March 22, but what would it take for Powell to raise rates? Well, I think they are going to probably raise rates. And the reason why I think they're going to do it is because they know things are not great and things are keeling over again. And with rates at zero, they can't cut it. And I think for the major reserve currency of the world to have negative rates is not a good thing. So what I think is happening, they're just trying to raise it as much as they can without creating havoc in the markets and the economy so they can cut it afterwards. But I don't think they'll be able to do 4 or even more, and I've saved an article here to share with you guys about this, actually. So that was a good question. Let me share another article that I saw that I thought, you see, so this is the FT, and a lot of these are mainstream financial press and mainstream press. They're talking about how the Fed is going to fight inflation, right? And but I don't think they realize how much of against the wall, how cornered the central bankers are. It says expectations build for more than 3 U.S. rate rises this year. Fed officials and economists predict central bank will go beyond its baseline forecast for increases if inflation persists. The thing is, and that's why I've always been really pedantic about the definition of inflation. Inflation is not what we're getting right now. What we're getting right now are rising prices. The inflation has already been created, and it's not just since 2020, but since 1971, and also especially since 08, 09. These people, mainstream economists, central bankers, politicians, they thought that they could have a free lunch. You do this QE, and you create all this phony credit out of thin air, trillions upon trillions, and you expect it not to cost anything. So the problem is right now is that governments, corporations, especially the bankers, and all other kinds of corporations, and consumers, we are all, in general, I'm not talking about you or me, because hopefully you guys haven't extended yourselves in terms of debt, but everyone's so addicted to easy credit, and it's been for so long that there's a very small chance that they can reverse this significantly. And even if they don't do it significantly, there's a big chance that it could trigger a total implosion. The house of cards would all collapse. So yeah, they're just trying to, it's more propaganda, or maybe they think that if they warn the markets and investors enough, that when they do it, it will be okay. But I mean, you look at the charts, all the leverage, mortgage lending. You look at margin also lending in the stock market. It's the highest it's ever been. So this is, I think it's an impossibility. And yes, they can try to pull the plug. Everything would collapse. And the companies will go bust, governments will go bust. And I've said that earlier today in the video. And that's why you need to have something outside the system. We're not in a period of Goldilocks where everything is really steady, and we're not, because everything has gone out of whack, all the debt. And the other option, of course, is that they raise it a little bit, they see that everything is imploding, and then they reverse everything, do more QE, stop the tapering, and then by, I think if they do that again, I think people will finally realize that there's no way out of the inflation. And that's when total confidence in the currencies, dollar and all other currencies included, is going to drop through the floor. And that's when you're going to see the super cycle in commodities. It's going to be one for the books, and it's not going to be based on it's going to be based on fear. It's not going to be like the commodity bull market that we had from 02 to 08 that's based on strong economic growth. It's going to be based on fear, in my opinion, and it's going to be a massive bull market. Boy, have a sip of my water. Oh, I found this the other day. My wife was going through some drawers, and I forgot I had one. It's a cuff link that's like a little silver bar. It's 925. So I weighed it. It's about 17 grams of pure silver, so just over an ounce. The two cuff links. Joker Alpha, yeah, inflate or die. I'm sure they will find a reason in the next month or two not to do it. You could be right, or he could try to do it a couple of times. I saw that, yeah, inflate Joker Alpha. Someone's 55, Sconge 55. Boris is a historical fact. Yeah, that's the other thing. This is all distraction. I try, I'm not saying I haven't read the stories and everything, but it doesn't matter who's in power anywhere in the world. It's just a game. And I think people have to focus on themselves, being, your own boss, being self-sufficient, helping your family. Yeah, of course, we have to deal with government, unfortunately, but we can't wait for someone to come and save us, be it in the US or in the UK, because they're not coming. Because if voting mattered, it would already be illegal to vote. So that's what I have to say about that. but but one thing I would say about the party gate here in the UK is that it just hopefully it wakes people up to the fact that if this crisis we've had since March 2020 was so serious and so deadly, you know, how come these politicians were having parties every Friday when we were locked in our houses and we couldn't go out to restaurants. We could only go out shopping for food and exercise for an hour. And they were having parties and drinking together. And I think that's the message from it. I'm not, it under normal circumstances, there's not a problem with people having drinks party because, they're adults. But when you create a situation where the whole country is locked down and can't do anything, and then you do it because, and then you do it, it just totally discredits their agenda. And that's what I hope people realize from this. Not that Boris Johnson is going to be sacked or resign. It's the fact that it was basically a lie, the whole thing. Joker Alpha, should British tax collector be dissolved? Of course. I mean, taxation should be very minimal, as there has to be some way to raise funds to administer the rule of law, but it shouldn't be done in no. And so these funds would be used to protect everyone against theft, against crime, assault. That's what it's supposed to be. But if you tax people, one group of people to give that money to another, that's wrong. So yeah, of course they should be dissolved. And the problem is, I think one of the reasons the rule of law, like Bastiat talks about, has gone into legal plunder, because they've used the excuses of wars and crises to implement laws or rules or statutes that, under normal circumstances, under peacetime, when there's no crisis, people wouldn't accept it. And then, unfortunately, though, they never rescind those rules and statutes after the crisis. And the income tax is a case in point. It was in the UK. It was first, I think, legislated after the Napoleonic Wars, and they said, "Oh, it's going to be a temporary income tax to pay for the Napoleonic Wars." So here we are, 200 years later, and we're still paying for the Napoleonic Wars. We still have the income tax. How come they haven't scrapped it? It's like the VAT. They're charging VAT on energy that our utilities, and that's because in the EU they've got this green agenda, and part of funding it is to tax us 20% on how much energy we use. But now that we've left the EU, there's no reason to charge us that. But Boris Johnson the other day said, "Oh, it would be too easy to scrap the 20% on energy," and he said, "Oh, that would help everyone." And that's a blunt instrument, he said. But what's the problem with helping everyone, even the people who are well off? Just abolish it for everyone. Albert, the Napoleonic War was over in 1814, 1815. So yeah, a couple of 100 years. Greg Austin, Arbeit macht frei. Yeah, and also Impfen macht frei. Impfen is this thing that in German that's like a Impfen, I think. Impfung macht frei. Scott 49,140. Should the legitimate cost of government be paid for by user taxes instead? I've tried to find how Bastiat proposes to fund, because he thinks government should be just judges, police, and army, basically. That's it. So how do you fund that? Well, you could do it through a small import duty on something. Yeah, it could be very minimal, or it could be some consumption tax that everyone has to pay. Of course, the poor would suffer more from that, but you have to find something, do it in a fair way, I would say. But you wouldn't need to raise much, because you wouldn't have to fund anything else. The best way to look at it is to look how much we fund right now, the army, the police, and the judicial system. That's all you really need. Of course, in the US, it's a little different, because you have a military industrial complex that's built for an empire. And I think that's wrong. That's a huge legal plunder there. And I think it was President Eisenhower who was a military man who warned against that. And in his farewell address, I think. Victor Alexis, Russia, USA, China is New World Order. Well, I think the New World Order is really the central bankers, the finance, and they're way more powerful than those three countries. So yeah, it's a group of, it's like the Rockefeller said, it's a group of elite bankers and whatever corporate giants, people really running the show. And it's basically a global dictatorship. Echo, gold ownership prohibited in the UK? No, but in the 60s up until 1979, they limited the amount of gold you could buy every year. There were exchange controls, and I think they might have limited the amount, but they didn't ban the ownership. Right now, gold sovereigns and silver Britannias, they're legal tender, so they'd have to change the law. You never know, they could. Unfortunately, when the rule of law or the law is used as an instrument of oppression and plunder, like it's being done now, anything can happen. But does that mean that you shouldn't have gold and silver? Not really, because it will protect you more than keeping your money in the bank, because they'll go at that first, and they'll have to look hard to find, it's easier to hide gold and silver. Alternate View says, read free online PDF book, none dare call it a conspiracy. I think I heard about that title. Right now I'm finishing, I'm reading this book here. It's a fiction book. Let me get it. I think I'm on page 585, and it's called Dominion by Cj Sensum. And it's a really interesting book. And it's really, I'll talk about it when I finish it, but it's like about parallel history. It takes place in 1952, in the UK, in England, and they're it's as if Churchill hadn't become prime minister in 1940, and then there was no World War II, and really the Germans are basically running the UK, not legally but de facto. There's a fascist government in the UK, and there's a resistance movement, and Churchill's the leader of it. And a lot of what they talk about, it's a really good story. A lot what they talk about feels like what's happening today with this crisis. So I highly recommend it. So what I'm trying to say, when I finish this, I have some other books to read, and then I'll look at the book you recommended. I'm trying to finish books because sometimes I start reading several books and I won't finish all of them. Oh, Echo Echo. I would never trust the Royal Mint. I wouldn't keep it there. It's just like keeping it with a bank. Don't trust them. You've seen what the Australian government has done, so they could do it here. James Hafford, if gold is banned, will it be used on a black market? How could you buy a house with it? Government is tracking it. Yeah, it will. Yeah, you won't. Yeah, you won't be. I don't know. It could be used in the black market. Uh, that's a question I can't answer. But I don't think they will do that, because when the system implodes, they'll need gold and silver. So if they ban it, they won't be able to get out of the hole. But you never know. Carlos Garcia, thank you for your super chat. Would you be happy if the Fed pay you 100,000 for your 1 ounce gold without backed? Fiat crypto, no collapse of market and society. Well, I'd have to look at where other assets would be. If the Dow was at 50,000, yeah, I would probably look to exchange some of it, some of the gold, into companies or businesses. I think you need to look at other tangible assets, what they're worth. So if the Dow's 200,000, a million, Dow is a million and gold's 100,000. Yeah, it's all relative. And the other thing about gold and silver is that they're money, and you save it for a rainy day or for a good investment opportunity. Jay, the Fed is responsible for supply shortages. I agree. They're blaming supply shortages. The mainstream economists are blaming supply shortages for higher prices, but they've got it backwards. The central banks and the financialization of the economies in the last 50 years, that's what's created the supply shortages. We've the people who run the system, and also I guess, yeah, they think that you can run an economy just on easy money and not have to worry about real physical things. And that's what I think is happening now. And I think COVID and the crisis trigger that, but it was going to happen either way. This just-in-time inventory is totally, it totally needs easy credit and transportation to run smoothly. But it's not going to work anymore, I don't think. So we got 3 more minutes till the end, and I'll answer a few more questions. Yeah, supply shortages. Craig. I think, when you close the economy for here, they did it for 240 days, and you pay people to stay at home doing nothing, and then you pump like 20% of GDP into the government through QE and through borrowing to pay people to do nothing, and you shut economies all around the world. It's no wonder that prices are going up. And plus, it's disrupted everything. And the other thing I wanted to show you guys is this here. I almost forgot. And this has got everything to do with this supply thing. And this shows me that these people are all working together. And I think it's going to get worse, the supply thing. But it says China's zero COVID policy poses challenge for manufacturers and supply chains. Lockdowns, restrictions causing greater disruption than during earlier waves of the pandemic. So I think they're going to use this as another excuse, the Western central banks to not raise rates and to do more and more QE and maybe even cut rates. So, but in the end of the day, the supply chain problem wouldn't be here if we had economies that were balanced. And by that, I mean, yes, there is a financial sector, but that's like the tail of the economy. And then you have the real economy, which is the dog, Billy. But now it's the other way around. We've got the financial sector is Billy and his tail is the economy. And you can't run an economy like that. So yeah, there you go. Last question, James Hafford, have you seen Rafi's video from today about PPI? It's at record levels like in 20 countries. I saw the thumbnail for his video. I am going to watch it. Yeah, it is at record levels. You know what the PPI came out in Norway the other day? 68% in 2021. The reason it hasn't translated into the CPI is because the Norwegian government is they basically subsidizing the energy sector. So the PPI price rises hasn't translated into the consumer prices, but 68% PPI. There you go. All right. Thank you, everyone, for showing up for the live stream. Thank you for participating, and I'll talk to you tomorrow. Take care, everyone. Thank you. Bye.